Finally, we're on part 4 of episode 92 of Smack Talk, and it's time for a brand new segment, Busted Open. And the way that this works is different from the lists and the scores and all that other kind of stuff. We have more of a focal point here. Busted Open is going to be about taking a question and figuring out the underlying answer to it, something that we need to examine really hard. And it's not something, like an Ask Him or anything like that, where it's the question of the week is, or, well, we're not going to do this every week, but the question of the Busted Open for this time is who won this match at WrestleMania. It's not going to be like that. This is going to be something more like along the lines of what we have today. Is SummerSlam really still the number 2 pay-per-view in WWE? They used to market it as the second biggest underneath WrestleMania and supposed to be the WrestleMania of the summer, the biggest party of the summer, and all this other kind of grandest stage of them all other than WrestleMania. But as time's gone on, personally, I think that SummerSlam has lost a lot of its vigor. And if I were to just make it, quick, too long, didn't read type of a situation here, I gotta say Royal Rumble is number 2. It beats SummerSlam out by far. And
Definitely.
there's a couple contenders here that we'll be talking about. Some people think Night of Champions. Some people think Survivor Series is still bigger than that, which that's a good point because Survivor Series does have some big important things that happen during it. Some people actually think Money in the Bank. And thankfully, nobody is stupid enough to think TLC is or anything like that.
What do you mean? I think TLC is important.
I knew that was coming.
It had to be. So before I just ramble, I'm going to pass it on to you guys. What do you think? Jester, if you got to say, is SummerSlam still the second biggest behind WrestleMania, or has it been overshadowed?
I think it's been the Rumble for quite a few years. When the wrestling season starts, I usually say the wrestling season starts right after WrestleMania. The biggest pay-per-view that you look forward to besides WrestleMania is the Royal Rumble. And that's because the Royal Rumble is the most interactive, fun, entertaining part of the wrestling year. The person who wins the Royal Rumble is destined to get a huge push in the year coming. And, it's the most exciting match in WWE. And the whole pay-per-view, they used to call them the Big Four: WrestleMania, the Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. So the Rumble was always on that pedestal anyway. But the last few years, SummerSlam has felt like a above-tier pay-per-view. And the Rumble is the one people look forward to. The Rumble is always going to have something big happen at the end. Vince McMahon can come out on Raw and say that SummerSlam is still their second biggest pay-per-view all he wants. But I think it's pretty clear that the Rumble is, and has been, the second biggest pay-per-view for a long time. And I would actually agree with that Money in the Bank statement. I think Money in the Bank is the third biggest pay-per-view. I think that the Money in the Bank winners end up having a big year since they've made it its own pay-per-view. Because the last person I can remember that actually had a mediocre Money in the Bank cash-in was Swagger, and that was at a WrestleMania. I think that since Money in the Bank's been its own pay-per-view, the Money in the Bank holders have been the focal points of the show going forth. You look at Randy Orton, who is like the centerpiece of one of the probably the biggest feud. He's at the centerpiece of one of the biggest feuds in the company right now, and it's because he's holding that briefcase. So I would argue that the Rumble is the second biggest pay-per-view, and that SummerSlam's not even the third. I think Money in the Bank is a bigger pay-per-view. It's more looked forward to. I do think it's unfortunate that it's a gimmick attached that makes people so hot for those two pay-per-views. But I think that those two pay-per-views are definitely more looked forward to than SummerSlam. However,
Random, however.
Well, can I say something to you, Jester?
no.
All right, well, wouldn't the Royal Rumble be technically a gimmick pay-per-view because they always have the Rumble every year?
Yeah. I said
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about Money in the Bank.
I
My
said
bad.
I said it's a shame that both of them need a gimmick. They need a gimmick attached to be looked forward to, but it doesn't. I guess it's not a big deal. Like SummerSlam's cool because it's a traditional pay-per-view with you have to be sold on the card to enjoy it. And I mean, we look forward to the Rumble and Money in the Bank because of the gimmick, but I mean, it doesn't change anything. They work. Those two those two gimmicks work, and those two pay-per-views are bigger pay-per-views, in my opinion, than SummerSlam.
What do you think, Sean?
Are we going before or after WrestleMania? Because I would say the Royal Rumble is first because it sets up WrestleMania. So WrestleMania for me is second. But after WrestleMania, I have to go with Night of Champions because that's the one I always look forward to, whether the card is shit or not. Every title is on the line. And that's what I look forward to the most, is title defenses and the feuds leading up to said title defenses and whatnot. And who knows, we might actually get to see the championship scramble this year round.
Oh my god, I really hope that we do.
That was really cool, though, one year they did that. So you're saying you think that the Rumble is a bigger pay-per-view than WrestleMania?
Well, it leads up to WrestleMania.
It does, but you'll see some decent matches for the Rumble. Oh, another good driving point to say that the Rumble is number 2 is the fact that they did CM Punk and The Rock for the main event of the Royal Rumble. And I don't even remember what the main event of SummerSlam was.
That was Triple H and Lesnar.
Yeah, what would you argue is a bigger match? I would say CM Punk and The Rock.
Oh, definitely.
So, but yeah, the Rumble will usually give you the Rumble and maybe one other big match. But WrestleMania is when they throw in the cash on everything. You get the finishing feuds for the year, you get both title matches, you get all the big money matches, like stuff like The Rock and John Cena and Triple H and Brock Lesnar. Those kind of matches don't happen at the Royal Rumble.
The Funkadactyls against Bella Twins.
That didn't even happen on the
That didn't.
The bigger matches happen at WrestleMania. While sometimes I won't say that I don't enjoy the Rumble as a pay-per-view more than WrestleMania a lot of the time, because I do. I think that as far as being a bigger show, I think WrestleMania is definitely the biggest show, and it's definitely the one that makes them the most money too. I mean, you'll see them air WrestleMania on NBC months after it even happened, and you don't see that with any of the other pay-per-views.
Finish your point now.
That was my point. I don't know why I said so.
This is a horrible analogy for me to make because I'm totally not the person that is qualified to talk about football. But the way that I kind of view it, WrestleMania is always compared to the Super Bowl. And the Royal Rumble is like that divisional championship game to determine who gets into it. It's at that point the biggest point. And sometimes that actually can be a better game and a more important game almost than the Super Bowl itself. It's never going to be as important when it comes to sponsors and people making a big deal about it and all that. But sometimes it's it's almost a foregone conclusion. If this person wins that championship and goes to the Super Bowl, they will win. And people don't care as much who wins the Super Bowl because, we already know this person's going to win. It's the two people in this division fighting it out that actually is the one that we would have seen at Super Bowl to make a better game. Royal Rumble is kind of like that a little bit, where people kind of take it as, if this person wins the Royal Rumble, well, then we know what's going to happen at WrestleMania. As soon as John Cena won, it was clear and obvious that they weren't going to go any other route than John Cena against The Rock.
Same goes with Sheamus against Bryan and...
Yeah, and, they used to be able to have this air of uncertainty where which champion are they going to end up picking and all that, but now they pretty much forecast it. So the Royal Rumble is almost looked at as I guess you could say, kind of the setting point for everything. And even though it does build up to the biggest pay-per-view, it still is kind of like the foundation that everything depends on. And if the Royal Rumble sucks, WrestleMania is going to blow.
So pretty much what you're saying is that the Royal Rumble is pretty much like the beginning of the playoffs for football. Yeah, see, I will agree with you 100% on that one, Mr. Mango.
Damn right you do. It's my show.
Kick your ass off.
Fuck you, man.
It's again,
I'll be the devil's
Joe.
advocate now. Damn.
But in that kind of sense, I can see why they would consider SummerSlam to be the second biggest, because they need that other kind of focal point in the middle of the year. But there's no comparison in my mind when it comes to that between the Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. SummerSlam has been eked out so many years from the Royal Rumble because they used to have maybe the second biggest match of the year. Sort of like right now, if you were looking at WWE, we've got the Brock Lesnar and CM Punk match, which is huge. And we've got the Daniel Bryan and John Cena one, which both of those could have been WrestleMania matches, and we would have completely bought into them. It's not like at WrestleMania we would have had the Christian and Del Rio one, and people would have just kind of been like, what? Really? That's your fucking main event for WrestleMania? But at the same time, SummerSlam needs to be bigger and better for a couple other matches too, and I'm not feeling it this year. I haven't felt it when they've had Big Show in every fucking main event, it seems, for the past couple of years. So that I put it on par with Survivor Series, where it's kind of like Royal Rumble is a slot underneath WrestleMania. There's no touching WrestleMania in my mind. Royal Rumble's number 2, and then a pretty far distant number 3 is the connection of SummerSlam and Survivor Series, where it's like, if we need something big to happen, we might have it at those two. I'm expecting Brock Lesnar to not wrestle again until Survivor Series, for instance. But then it gets into the other ones in my mind, and then that's when you have Money in the Bank, and to a smaller extent, Elimination Chamber, which Elimination Chamber is almost only important for one match too, because they tend to like stall until WrestleMania a little bit. But if that determines who challenges the champion, then that's usually an important thing. But sometimes they make that the switch up where people change the championships before WrestleMania and all that. I would kind of put Money in the Bank above that and put Elimination Chamber on par with Extreme Rules, and then Night of Champions with TLC, and then we've got Battleground and Payback and Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell, what a fucking waste. That used to be the most important thing in the world, and now the pay-per-view is pointless.
I actually hate Extreme Rules. I think it's a terrible pay-per-view. I can't.
I
I consider Elimination Chamber like Money in the Bank level, because winning the Elimination Chamber is just as good as winning the Money in the Bank. Like it. I mean, and those pay-per-views have like crap besides the gimmick matches themselves. Nothing else happens. I mean, that wasn't true one year when Punk and Cena had their big WWE title match. That was big, but otherwise, Money in the Bank and Elimination Chamber are almost the same.
I've rated Survivor Series way, way, way down.
Yeah,
Really?
Survivor Series is a joke the last few years. It's the same as SummerSlam almost, like probably lower, just because they almost got rid of Survivor Series when they did the bragging rights thing. That was a test to see if they could handle getting rid of Survivor Series and replacing it. Like, I mean, I definitely feel like Vince's opinion out of the big four, he rates Survivor Series the lowest. Like SummerSlam has always got that. They still try to put enough into it. They call it the biggest party of the summer. It has a host. The only other pay-per-view besides WrestleMania besides SummerSlam that had a host was WrestleMania. They go out of their way to try to make SummerSlam still relevant. And I am excited for this SummerSlam. I don't want it to seem like I think SummerSlam is a terrible pay-per-view. I don't think it's the second biggest pay-per-view anymore, but I still think it's a good pay-per-view. But I don't even care about Survivor Series. Like, I just don't even think about it. I don't even know if they do the tag matches anymore. I haven't watched Survivor Series in like 3 years. Like, I just don't care. It used to be the one I got every year too, because it's the same month as my birthday. So I would always when I was in high school and stuff, I'd have my parents get Survivor Series on my birthday. But now I just don't even care. It's such a poor pay-per-view.
It's in the same month as my birthday as well, so it's pretty clutch there.
I mean, me and Drew White are twins.
Yeah.
If anyone didn't know.
Yeah, man. Dude, even though 9 years apart, we're still...
We're
Wait,
still...
no, that's me and Mango, my bad.
9 years? we're twins, but Drew can't do math.
No, I messed up. I thought...
He dates Asian girls so they can do the math for him.
Jesus Christ. So you wouldn't even rank Survivor Series as one of the big four, probably, right?
No, I definitely below SummerSlam. It's above like Extreme Rules and Payback and stuff, but it's not even on SummerSlam's tier anymore, in my opinion. It's pretty.
I think Money in the Bank has taken over Survivor Series as the top 4.
Money in the Bank's absolutely better than Survivor Series.
I could see that. I actually have seen a lot of people refer to it as the Big Five, where they've thrown Money in the Bank in there as the 5th one.
That's fair. Night of Champions is probably better than Survivor Series too.
That's the other one too. A lot of people have made the case that Night of Champions is kind of like we have and it feels awkward to say this about SummerSlam, but that SummerSlam is the B pay-per-view between Money in the Bank and Night of Champions sometimes. And it depends on the year, I think, too, because
depends on the card a lot. Because
Yeah.
like there have been poor Night of Champions cards for sure, but there've also been really good ones.
yeah, there have been some really awful ones. I mean, when we had the 2 separate tag team championship divisions, and we had, fucking Caden Murdoch and Brian Kendrick and Paul London, and they're facing like the Highlanders and shit. Like, that was just awful. And when we had to force the 2 Divas championships into it, and they run into this kind of situation. It seems like almost like every other year where they don't know what to do, so they have a whole bunch of people thrown onto the card. And I think that they might do that again this year, but there's certainly the potential for Night of Champions to be a really big pay-per-view. But now that they have less titles, it's kind of diminished that quality a little bit. So I would kind of put Night of Champions, TLC, Extreme Rules, they all usually have one thing important about them, but not necessarily as important as Elimination Chamber. Money in the Bank, of course, is, out of all of these relatively newer ones that they've made, Money in the Bank has to be the top of them.
Yeah, pretty much, unfortunately, but yes. Unless Battlegrounds and Payback are going to be those 2 pay-per-views that overshadow, they're going to take over WrestleMania someday.
Yeah, Battleground's going to be like, we're joking about like how we're going to set up things for WrestleMania and all that. Instead, we're going to get the Undertaker streak at Battleground, and they're going to blow off this whole Vince McMahon Triple H storyline at Battleground. Actually, they might. You never know. They might try to throw something on there. But what was that, Drew?
What I was gonna say, I was like, this entire time, I was gonna try to be the devil's advocate to you guys and try to convince myself that SummerSlam was the number 2 pay-per-view, but it's really hard to say that now. It's been hard. It's been because I know in my mind, I'm like, fuck, I'm not gonna be able to do this. But like the only thing that SummerSlam has that keeps it relevant is the fact that they hold it in one place every year. They build up to it like, hey, this is a big fucking deal. And this is like one of the couple occasions where you can see Brock Lesnar fight. And that's, to me, that's like the only reason that it's still relevant is because Lesnar is going to be on the card.
See, I would take SummerSlam more seriously, but the problem is, like with WrestleMania, the matches are set in stone for the few weeks before. Like they actually develop every feud the weeks leading up. For SummerSlam, we still have a week left, and I'm pretty sure they're going to add at least one more match to the card because it's already a small card. And It's like, how can you call this a big pay-per-view and then just like have matches that have like no build-up on them? And how can you leave off people like RVD and Curtis Axel off of SummerSlam? Like,
well, see, they do. Finish.
And they're like people that you see on Raw and Smack. The people that you see on Raw and SmackDown every week should honestly be a part of every pay-per-view. People like Fandango should always be on pay-per-view. He's on every Raw and every SmackDown. They use the crap out of him. He is like a star that people watch the show and expect to see. Mm-hmm. So why isn't he on the pay-per-view?
Yeah, at least on the pre-show.
Rob Van Dam is another guy that's on Raw and SmackDown every week. And because he just came back, there's tons of people that he could feud with.
Who is on the pre-show? SummerSlam.
Said he could at least be on the pre-show.
Yeah, nobody's been announced yet.
It sounds like it's going to be RVD and Antonio Cesaro, I heard.
Oh, yeah.
But like it's just weird. Like people like RVD, people like Curtis Axel, people like Fandango, not having a match at SummerSlam and it's supposed to be the second pay-per-view after WrestleMania is a joke. Those guys would be on the Royal Rumble. They'd be on Money in the Bank. Mm-hmm. Why aren't they on SummerSlam?
Well, the thing is, I feel like WWE has been really bad at this for the past couple years, but they have been announcing a lot of matches like at the last minute ever since I started watching wrestling again. Like at Extreme Rules, they didn't even announce like half the card until like the day before it happened. They did a Payback, I believe, as well.
Hashtag Bang and Dean Ambrose.
It's really, really bad to the point where, I mean, you can tell when they rush those kind of things. Like, I don't feel the slightest bit confident that they had plans for Del Rio and Christian. Not at all.
No.
Why? sorry, go ahead.
Like, that match to me proves that certain pay-per-views, they only really look at it as, like, for this one, for instance, they were like, okay, we're going to do CM Punk against Brock Lesnar. We're going to do Daniel Bryan against John Cena. We'll figure everything else out. And they only had that plan leading up to Money in the Bank. So then when Money in the Bank happened, they were like, okay, now we got Money in the Bank over with. All right, shit, we got to figure out what we're going to do now, and we only have a couple of weeks. Well, the Cody Rhodes thing, we'll go with that. Okay, we'll keep the Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow feud going, because that seems that people caught on to that whole thing that we were planning at Money in the Bank. So we've got that match. All right, well, what do we do with the World Heavyweight Championship? Fuck. Like, because this whole situation with Dolph Ziggler's concussion, yeah, it puts a huge wrench in your plans, but at the same time, you're WWE. You have to figure that crap out. And you didn't have to take the title off of Dolph Ziggler. If you didn't have a plan, you shouldn't have taken it off of him just to kind of do that crap, which everybody was saying. They were like, oh, they're taking it off so he can build him back up and he can win it from Del Rio. And I kept saying, no, they're taking it off because they're stupid, and they're going to do that crap where they're like, let's just keep it on Del Rio for a while, and we'll figure out what's going on. And now we're seeing the repercussions of that, because, and it happens a lot with Del Rio, and it happens with Sheamus too, and this is one of the reasons why I said I was happy that Sheamus is gone, is they're comfortable enough for these guys to be given a championship, but they don't care enough about them to put any effort into it. So then they take Del Rio and they go, well, who do we have? We have RVD, we have Christian, we have Sheamus, Randy Orton. He can be Christian. And they figure that out 2 weeks into after Money in the Bank or something.
I've actually got a question about the Alberto, Del Rio, and Christian thing. I don't watch SmackDown, but isn't it right that Alberto Del Rio handpicked Christian to be his opponent?
He picked Ricardo, and then Vicky said that was a joke and that he was trying to abuse the fact that she let him pick his opponent. So then she made a triple threat with Christian, RVD, and Orton to try to impress Mr. McMahon. And then Christian won the triple threat. And then it was the week after he pinned Del Rio too, and then he pinned Del Rio again today. So
he's clearly not winning.
He's not winning at SummerSlam. I think it's really stupid that they have an entire team of creative writers that, like, even up until, like, the moment of the show starting, they ride on a plane with Vince and everything. Like, they are there constantly working on the show, supposedly. They have all these people that work on the show. So why can they only work on, like, 3 or 4 feuds? They don't make these complex storylines. They don't put all this effort into that. They easily could have a 7 or 8 match card and have an actual rivalry on all of them. Like, if we have a pay-per-view with 7 matches, we're lucky if 4 of them actually have a story going into it.
Other than you attacked me and then we're going to have a match together.
Right. Like,
which is the Shield.
They just take, like, people that are used on the show a lot. Like, 2 people that are popular. Oh, Fandango and Curtis Axel. People react to those guys. Well, they can have a match. It's just like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm happy that's a match, but, like, I want there to be a reason why they're having a match. That's just as important as the match itself.
And the same applies to SummerSlam itself. If that's supposed to be that damn important to you, you mean to tell me that you couldn't figure out ahead of time whether or not Big Show was going to be ready for the fucking event, and you're going to have Mark Henry and the Shield come out and attack Mark Henry for almost no reason whatsoever, and then we have Mark Henry and the Shield and 2 completely devoid partners because you don't want to use the Usos. Now we don't know what match we're getting. We don't know if Big Show's coming back. If Big Show is coming back, is it really going to make that big of a splash when he comes back the week before the pay-per-view? And if he doesn't, then fuck. What are they going to do? They're going to run a whole different setup on Monday Night Raw coming up in the next few days?
It's stupid because they were so short-sighted that if they knew that there was a possibility Show couldn't come back, all they had to do to fix this was have the match planned to be Henry and the Usos. Then the Shield attacks the Usos. Mark Henry needs a new partner. He's looking for one. And the week of, if we come to Raw Monday and Big Show's still not ready, someone else can come out and be his partner. And if Big Show is ready, Big Show shows up at the end of the night and beats the shit out of the Shield. And the Big Show is Mark Henry's only partner. And that's fine. It makes a perfectly reasonable reason for the Big Show to show up at the last minute and be his partner. that's acceptable. And then it doesn't really hurt anything because you've had that story building up for a few weeks of the story is Mark Henry needs a partner to face the Shield after they attacked him. And because the Usos have been taken out. And they didn't do something like that. They just kind of did random matches every week and hoping that eventually the Big Show would come back and they could start a program.
Right.
And it's like, now I'm not even assuming the Shield or Mark Henry are going to have a match. Even though the Shield were the thing we saw at the end of Raw last week, it's really sad that they might not even be a part of SummerSlam, and they're still a huge part of the show. I don't understand. Like,
oh wow,
yeah,
it makes no sense.
We have nobody set for Curtis Axel, so they can't have some kind of really developed Intercontinental title match. We have nobody set up for a pre-show. We don't have anybody who's challenging the big bully Ryback. We don't have anything really that points to them really caring that much about SummerSlam other than the Cena match and the Punk match. And when you build a whole pay-per-view around two matches and try to talk about it being the second biggest pay-per-view of the year and all that, well, the Royal Rumble has one huge match, but it also has two World Championship matches and normally at least one other match that's halfway entertaining, halfway important and all that. Royal Rumble's a kind of different story because they need to focus all on one match because it's so damn long. And if SummerSlam this year was a different story where one of those two matches was an Iron Man match, then that makes sense. But it isn't. So that's showing that they only care enough to put two big things on the SummerSlam card, and they don't care enough about the rest of it, and they think that that's going to do everything that they need. And if they applied that to Survivor Series, which we don't see them do, then they would only be like, okay, well, we need one world title match and the tag team match, and that's it. And that card tends to fill out a little bit more. So that's why I think SummerSlam is really losing a lot of its standing in WWE. And if they don't change something up soon, then nobody's going to really look at that as the second biggest pay-per-view. Right now, I would say if you told me we'll let you order 3 pay-per-views a year for free, or hey, what pay-per-views would you like to get tickets to? WrestleMania, obviously, Royal Rumble, and I would totally bypass SummerSlam, and I would totally bypass Survivor Series. I would go with Money in the Bank.
Yep, me too.
How many tickets would we? How many shows would we be allowed to go to?
3. He said 3.
3.
Oh, he said 3.
If it was those 3, yeah, I wouldn't even pick SummerSlam. If it was like 5, I might.
Yeah,
Okay.
5, I'll
3,
give you that one.
3, nah, I wouldn't pick SummerSlam.
See, the thing is, I just don't see any show above SummerSlam. I just kind of see them equal to it because they've never really distinguished another show to be above SummerSlam besides for the Royal Rumble.
And WrestleMania.
So it's just like a tie for third between like 5 other pay-per-views.
I do think that, while this is only relevant to your example you just made, I do think that going to California would be really appealing if they're paying for me to go to any of these places.
You know what's so sad about that, though? You went to that, and literally when I was saying my examples, I was going to say, okay, well, maybe I would go with SummerSlam just as an excuse to fly out there and go to LA. But isn't that sad enough that we have to look at that more?
Yeah, we're like, dude, free trip to Cali.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's at, like, what is the announced card so far? It's the 2 world title matches, Lesnar Punk, Rhodes Sandow, and the
mixed tag. Yeah.
and Kane and Bray Wyatt. They could at least fit in 2 more matches. What Sean said earlier, yeah, the Intercontinental title match might be just Axel losing to some random, and then they have a match. Because Axel has been busy with the CM Punk Brock Lesnar thing and Paul Heyman, so I guess they haven't really had time to develop a feud for him. Granted, it's not like they couldn't do one on the side on like SmackDown.
And they like to have Paul Heyman twice on a pay-per-view nowadays.
Right. He could be dealing with the Paul Heyman stuff on Mondays and feuding with someone on Fridays. And actually, having the Intercontinental Champion lose to somebody that they've kind of had a problem with right before a pay-per-view and then they have a match because of it isn't a bad way to have a match come out. But if that's the only thing that happens, like, let's say Axel's got, like, issues with R-Truth and they run into each other backstage and they're constantly like just getting in each other's Kool-Aid on SmackDown.
You're using that phrase now.
Damn, yes I am. And then because it's thebomb.com. and then like just like the week before SummerSlam, the Friday before, R-Truth bends Curtis Axel, earns an Intercontinental title match. That's a great way to set up a pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't understand why they literally just like throw a dart at like two names to pick the pre-show, or they think who's the biggest star that's not actually on the pay-per-view. Then we'll just use them on the pre-show. It'll be like a free win for them, and it'll hopefully make people turn into the pre-show. The problem is that now we have these pre-shows on Mega Powers Radio, so the WWE pre-shows don't mean anything.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, actually, it's more of a. It's not called the pre-show anymore. It's the kickoff. Yeah, dude, come on.
See,
Goddamn.
they mean so little over the Mega Powers pre-show that we're just still calling it the pre-show.
Yeah, it is a pre-show.
It's a pre-show to the kickoff.
And this whole host thing, I just think is laughable, because what does the host actually do?
Matches. He made a match on SmackDown.
He's going to waste time at the pay-per-view. And that's another thing, too, is they've done in the past with SummerSlam, they've had musical guests, and they've done this like host thing and all that to try to make it seem like it's really that important. And we haven't seen musical guests anywhere else other than WrestleMania and SummerSlam. But thank fucking God we haven't, because if you would have do that at the Money in the Bank or Royal Rumble, then get the fuck off my screen, you know? And I don't want to see that at WrestleMania. I don't want to see that at SummerSlam, period. But having that at SummerSlam is not going to make it a better pay-per-view. It might make it seem to the LA crowd that it's more of like this well-rounded show. And I think that that's more so their mentality, where they're in an entertainment area and they want to try to make it seem like entertainment as opposed to sports entertainment.
Well, last year they had a musical number at Night of Champions, don't they, with that dude who was singing all their theme songs. I can't think what his name is at the moment.
Yeah, I don't even understand why they made the big deal about this guy performing. I've heard like two actual good songs by him, and they're like, oh yeah, dude, this guy, he's fucking amazing coming in. It's like, dude, this guy has like nothing interesting going on. I don't understand why you're wasting my time on my TV.
The only time I think it's okay to have like musicians involved in the show is if they're playing someone's theme that they do for WrestleMania.
Right.
Like having Living Colour do CM Punk's theme is fine. Having stuff like Kid Rock do the Undertaker's theme at WrestleMania 19. Is that cool?
Limp Bizkit. What the fuck were you talking about?
I don't know anything about music. But yeah, like
I want to see James Johnston come out and do Brock Lesnar's theme. Just have him on the stage, and he's got his musical instruments out, and he's just going
No.
Fandangos, man.
No, he's not playing a musical instrument. He's literally going, duh.
That's where I thought he was going with that. But yeah, like that's the only time it's acceptable. I don't want to take 10 minutes out that could have been a wrestling match for you to have P. Diddy come out and rap. Like, that's annoying. If I wanted to listen to P. Diddy, I would get on YouTube and type in his shit. I don't want to see it on my wrestling show. Like, you have all of these guys you want to like market and make into big stars and make you more money, and every second that they could be on TV makes you more money and makes them more money and makes us happy. So why would you not use that? Like, there's just so many people that don't get any time on TV and or enough time on TV. And pay-per-view is another great way. They make a lot more money if they're on the pay-per-view than they are on TV. So you're not only denying your company money, you're denying them a chance to get a good paycheck. You know, if this is a guy who busts his ass on every Raw and every SmackDown and every house show for you, and you're not even letting him work the pay-per-view because you're bringing in some celebrity that you're paying way more to sing or rap or play guitar or whatever.
To boost it up to the second biggest pay-per-view of the year.
And that doesn't even... And most of the time when we see that stuff, we just get mad. We're like, I don't want to see this. I'm pretty sure there's maybe 2% of people that actually watch these things and go, man, this is awesome. Yeah. Love P. Diddy. Like, fuck off. Why are you watching the show?
Because I love P. Diddy. That's why.
Dude, same. Yeah, like, I just think that you need to utilize all of that, like, TV time and everything you have for your performers and not outside people. And I think that's one of the big problems. I think that SummerSlam could easily have 8 or 9 matches they could easily make SummerSlam a little longer if they want it to be the second biggest pay-per-view. Make it like a half an hour longer and throw on a couple more matches and have a lot of feuds. I'd do that for SummerSlam. Like WrestleMania can be 4 hours, SummerSlam can be 3.5. It's fine.
I could see that.
Well,
Yeah,
no, the thing with
make it like 9 matches and make it a big deal, and try to cut out all the recaps and backstage things, and try to make. While I love the promo videos that like hype up the feuds, most of the time they're the same video that I've already seen a few times, and they're too long. They're like 5 minutes. Like you got 4 or 5 of these things, you took up 25 minutes of the show, and nowadays the pay-per-views end really early too. They end like 15 minutes early. So it's like we're just getting robbed of all this time, and if it's for something you pay for, then I don't.
I think what the problem with last year's SummerSlam was that like none of the matches were long at all, and I feel like that if you're gonna build a show around a couple big matches, they need to at least go like at least 15 minutes. I believe last year the only match that went like above 13 minutes was that Lesnar Triple H match, and that match wasn't anything special itself. So. And I just don't know what I'd do with the whole SummerSlam situation.
Nothing big happens anymore, it feels like. I could tell you the main events and quite a few matches of some SummerSlams from when I first started watching, and I could not tell you things that happened at the last 2 SummerSlams. Like, I forgot Triple H Lesnar happened until you guys brought it up. Only thing I remember in recent memory happening at SummerSlam was Del Rio cashing in because Nash came out and attacked CM Punk. That is the most recent memory I have of SummerSlam, and like that's just because that's a big thing. Because I'm a big Del Rio fan, and it was his first title.
Oh gosh, I'm the only one here.
I'm sorry. Fuck you guys, World Heavyweight Champion.
Well, 2010.
You both off.
2010 SummerSlam was the Nexus angle, wasn't it?
That was
Nexus
2009.
Are you positive? What was 2010 then?
I think it was 2010.
Might have been.
God knows. For me, the last couple of SummerSlams that's been relevant for me is 2003 and 2004.
Yeah, I remember those or 2004 at least. Like, yeah, and 2003. 2003 was the Chamber, right?
Yep, that's the debut.
I remember stuff from 10 years ago. I can't remember stuff from 2 years ago because I don't care enough.
Exactly. That in itself proves a lot of the point. Because we can remember WrestleMania.
Right.
And if we're supposed to remember SummerSlam just as much as WrestleMania, we can tell you who won all the Royal Rumbles.
Mm-hmm.
So the only other thing that I think we haven't touched upon yet that some people might bring up as like, well, they do this, is that SummerSlam has an Access too.
Does it? That's cool.
Does it?
I didn't know.
It does. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. WWE promotes it as like a big deal. And that's why I believe it should be at least considered to be the second biggest pay-per-view.
How much do they promote it? I haven't seen it on Raw or anything.
If you watch this, if you buy the SummerSlam pay-per-view, and like you watch the pre-show of it, they'll show like all of like the Access stuff that they have. Like they'll have like the Hollywood red carpet, some of the premieres they go to, and they'll show like some of the big events that they have at the Staples Center, I believe, or one of the convention centers.
I bet that too. They don't market it as much as WrestleMania. And if they were to kind of push the SummerSlam Access thing, maybe tie it into Miz as the host and always have a host at SummerSlam, or even though I don't want them to necessarily do this, even if they were to have a host every single year and it would specifically be somebody who's not on the main roster and somebody like The Rock or Hulk Hogan or Steve Austin, Ric Flair, Mick Foley, these people who are like the legends, or even just entertainment people. You know how there was rumors that Justin Bieber would have been the host for WrestleMania and all that shit.
Yeah. Let's go.
As long as they're people who are like legitimately wrestling fans and like would actually be entertaining, that's fine.
Yeah. If there's somebody who really has some kind of connection to it, and they were the whole entertainment thing, we're doing Access, and they're the host of Access. That I could see them doing. And that might make it seem like a bigger pay-per-view, but they barely mention it as it is, and I don't think that there's any question whatsoever. Anybody else have any other points before we figure out our final notes?
For me, Access isn't a big enough thing. Like, I feel like they could do Access for quite a few of the pay-per-views easily, so I don't really think that's a big enough reason for someone to argue for SummerSlam being the second biggest pay-per-view. Because I could easily see a Royal Rumble Access or a Money in the Bank Access. It's not hard to get the wrestlers who aren't wrestling together and have them wrestle a few exhibition matches and have some people sign some autographs and take some pictures and shake some hands and kiss some babies.
Well,
It's
to be
not
fair,
really...
they did have the NXT Royal Rumble, didn't they? For the Royal Rumble. Before
yeah.
the Royal Rumble.
Well,
You
Oh,
get
that
my
is
drift.
sick. I want to watch NXT so bad. I had such a boner for NXT when I watched it.
NXT, bro.
It's so great. Oh my
Well,
god. It's like Ring of Honor and WWE had a baby.
No, it's as if TNA had a baby.
Like
and
it's
it
like
was
it's
NXT.
like you get to see like the real like wrestling show aspect. Like that's what the Ring of Honor thing makes me think. But then like WWE superstars appear every now and then, so it's perfect. It's like the best medium because like you'll see Antonio Cesaro be boring his paper on Raw, and then you'll watch him on NXT, and you're like, holy shit, this is the best match I've seen in 7 years. Like what the hell's going on?
There you go. If NXT ever does a pay-per-view, it'll instantly be shot up past SummerSlam.
Yeah, absolutely. Second best pay-per-view. Not even close.
So around the horn, everybody, Jester, is it number 2 or is Royal Rumble?
It's Royal Rumble, absolutely.
Drew?
I'll go with Royal Rumble, but it's third and tied with like 3 other ones. Cause yeah.
Because yeah, that's a good reason.
Well, no, because you know, honestly, Extreme Rules usually produces a bunch of like quote unquote big matches for the past few years. So I'm surprised we didn't really talk about that being a big contender for
Shit.
a big review.
Cena Lesnar is the only big match. Shit.
Triple H, Lesnar, even though that was the third time, Lesnar was on the card.
Triple H should die. How about that? All right, go ahead, Sean.
Sean?
Yeah, Royal Rumble second. Night of Champions third. Money in the Bank fourth. Then the rest.
TLC.
Then Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, Hell in a Cell. God love
Then
Hell
the
in a Cell,
rest.
man.
Then the rest, and then Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
No, then the rest, and then TNA pay-per-views.
Then Armageddon.
Oh,
I miss Armageddon. And then Forgiven and No Way Out. Wait, No Way Out is still going, isn't it?
Judgment
Quick
Day.
side note, because I don't want to branch off into this or whatever, because we're at the end of the segment. But quick side note, how stupid of it was WWE not to cash in on the December 22nd, 2012 Apocalypse thing and have Armageddon instead of TLC? How fucking
Oh, it was-
stupid.
I honestly thought they would do so. You'd think they would have at least mentioned it, like with Jericho, like have him show up for like a few seconds, like, "Hey guys, it's the end of the fucking world!"
Right.
Woo! Then have like The Rock come out, just appear a little early, and just give him a rock bottom or something.
All right, so that rules us out for the first edition of Busted Open. Tell me what you guys thought of this. If you want to see anything in particular in the future, send us your suggestions and everything like that. For those who want to know what is coming up for the schedule, a lot of big things planned. I actually have everything planned all the way up until November 8th. So it's kind of crazy.
Ooh, can I say something?
Go ahead.
That's my birthday, Winky Face.
It'll be
Nobody
a birthday
cares.
bash.
Oh yeah,
Basically.
it'd be a bash at the beach, except it's a bash at the birthday. It's a bash
A
at
bash
the what?
at the
It's a
bouncy.
bounce- Yeah, there we go. I was about to say that.
A bouncy bash. Next week, we're going to have SummerSlam pay-per-view predictions along with the monthly mailbag and our final predictions, unless we decide to change that right before the pay-per-view itself for the Fantasy League. And then during the actual pre-show of WWE, but before it, I should say instead, we will do on Mega Powers Radio the pre-show of SummerSlam, where we all talk about anything that's changed in the process and all that. So you can tune into that, call in, and tell us what you guys think and everything. Next week after that, we're going to have SummerSlam pay-per-view review, the captions, the update on the Fantasy League, where we'll pick whoever ends up wanting to do the switch-up. August 30th is going to be Wrestling with the Past, talking about the old retired championship titles, which ones should we bring back, all the defunct things, and evaluating them, saying, this was a great title, this one was awful, I'm so glad they got rid of it. September 6th, episode 96, Fantasy Booking, who should be the champions right now? Then we have Night of Champions, same deal, mailbag and everything, pay-per-view review afterward with that. September 27th, we're going to finally bring back a tournament, and it's going to be a one-time tournament of episode 99. Who is the best Grand Slam champion of all time, keeping everything along with the Night of Champions theme. Episode 100 is going to be a big one. Battleground pay-per-view predictions, monthly mailbag, and a special announcement that was going to play into episode 101, the Battleground review, captions, Fantasy League updates, TNA Bound for Glory pay-per-view predictions, and our special little bonus kind of thing. I'm going to leave it off with that because 102, 103, onward and all that, I'm not going to spoil everything, but that's what's coming your way when it comes to Smack Talk. So there's a lot of big things coming up that you guys should be excited about, including SummerSlam itself, but we will talk about that on the post-show of Raw. We will talk about that on next week's episode where we go through our predictions, and we will talk about that on the pre-show before the pay-per-view itself. Now we're going to start getting into some of the plugs here. First plug, as it always is the Sign Me Up initiative. If you bring a Smark Out Moment sign to any kind of wrestling event, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter where it is, send me a picture or a video of it, and I will put it up on the website and up on the next episode of Smack Talk itself. And, excuse me, I'm going to round out myself a little bit later on when everybody else is done. So around the horn, Sean, what do you want to plug?
Just my articles on fanboysanonymous.com. I recently wrote why EA need to produce Underground 3 because they're pricks and they haven't done that yet. So, yeah, check that out. And check my Twitter out at Shaughnessy1989. Oh, no, that's my YouTube. Shaughnessy2K37 is my Twitter. So, yeah, check me out on that, please.
Drew?
Well, I also post on Fanboys Anonymous, but Tony will get to that later when he actually does his plugs. And I don't like plugging for him because I'm too cool for that kind of stuff. I'm like cool man, whatever the hell his last 4 digits are. So, I'm not even going to plug it this week. I am exhausted. So, bounce houses, hit me up. Millions of dollars.
Now this week's going to be the week where somebody from that area was looking for a bounce house and they're not going to have all the information. Jester.
All right. Sometimes I write articles on Fanboys Anonymous, so you can check those out. You can follow me on Twitter at ThatJesterKid, and you can follow my YouTube channel when that goes up.
That's not youtube.com/ when that goes up.
Yeah, that's actually the URL. When that goes up, you guys will know. Trying to think if there's anything. Oh, yeah, right. You could also check out the winning fantasy league team, Team Jester. And check
Let's
it out.
Go, Jester.
I just updated the cover photo. Got rid of Kane's ugly face. See, in typical Team Jester fashion, we run down everyone who leaves the team. So,
Super Dragon.
Kane is ugly, and his face is burnt, and nobody likes him.
Oh, poor Kane.
Let's go, Jester.
He's ugly, and his mom didn't love him in See No Evil, and that's why he's doing See No Evil 2 to get revenge.
Let's go, Jester.
As long as they don't do the May 19th gimmick all over again. For
Oh my god, that
See
should
No
come
Evil
out on
2.
May 19th, 2014. That would be the best.
So, do you want to spoil what your next article for Fanboys is?
Oh, man.
I haven't decided which one I'm doing next, so
Let's go, Jester.
won't spoil it. 'Cause I don't know yet.
All right, so to end this off, as I mentioned before, and everybody else has mentioned before, fanboysanonymous.com for everything geek. If you're a fan of movies, TV shows, comic books, video games, hot chicks doing the cosplay thing, anything along those lines, I'm sure you'll find something that's interesting for you. So check it out. If you want to write for the site as well, you can send me a message on the contact form and let me know. We're looking to expand as much as possible. Possibly looking to expand for Smark Out Moment coming up soon. That's not the big announcement that's coming at episode 101, but we might be seeing that coming up too. And on outonlimbs.com, where I complain about the world around me that makes me want to get out of the world around me. Suicide's not funny.
Yes, it is.
I just want to make a quick note that if I could become a writer on Fanboys, anybody can. So, send in your applications, damn it.
That's true. Anything Mike can do, anyone else can do.
Check out the Bleacher Report stuff. Pay attention to the Facebook and Twitter accounts. There's a million of them that I'm tied into. So if you go to amangotree.com, you'll see the list of every account that you can follow me on. And that is pretty much it. Episode 92 is in the bag. Thank you to everybody who's been a part of the show, everybody who comments later on. We'll tell you what the comment of the week is coming up next week, and everything else that's coming along your way. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out. Adios, everybody.
Outro fever! Outro fever! Outro fever! Yeah, 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 yeah! Outro fever! Outro fever! Outro fever! Yeah, 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 yeah! He's so cocky! He's so cool! He's just a outro dancing fool! When he steps out on the floor, the girls will be screaming. They want outro, 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 outro fever, outro fever, outro fever. Yeah, 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 yeah.
That was so depressing at the end.
We can do that on purpose.
In the words of my fellow British one, you got talent.
No, thanks. Thank you, Simon.
Boo!